Willkommen zum Live-Podcast.
All right, welcome to the Life's podcast. Today is going to be very short because I want this presentation to ultimately um, represent a lecture. And I want to get more people involved and I want to get more people into thinking, what are those components to a successful relationship, right? So I'm gonna share this quick little presentation, this quick little PowerPoint that I was able to draw up, given my 5 components, right, of an intimate relationship. So with that said, we're gonna draw into it and we're gonna get to it right now. All right. So here we have it, right? The 5 components of an intimate relationship. How to universally stimulate your partners, right? So, of course, as I said, it's going to be short. So, we're not going to actually go over the aspect of how to universally stimulate your partners. We're just going to go over the 5 components. So, hopefully, you'll be able to learn a thing or two. I went ahead and I added what I felt the chakra that best represented that component. But if you're not into chakras or you don't believe in whatever, you don't have to apply that. The most important thing that you apply is the components, right? That's something you can't avoid. So we're going to get into that right now. So the first one, right? Obviously financial. And I'm applying the root chakra to this component. Like I said, if you don't want to apply the chakras, you don't. But you better apply that financial component if you want a successful relationship. Now, finances, right, and money and this and that, it's very petty at the end of the day when you actually understand the concept of money. But at the end of the day, it just is what it is. You can't escape it unless you want to go live in the middle of the woods. You have to have money, right? And this is more so on the male side, right? On the man side, you have to have money. Have to have the masculine has to bring home the bacon, as they say, or unless you're a vegan, bring home the fruits and vegetables, whatever the case. I'm just joking. But really, the financial component is very important. You have to be able to feed your partner. You have to be able to house them. You have to be able to care for them. And honestly, that's just what comes with the territory is money. So although you don't need to be a millionaire, and I don't advise women, especially in this upcoming era, right, this upcoming generation of young women, the Gen Zs they call them, and even under that, um, just be mindful about how much money is enough money, and try not to just go for the rich guy, because that seems to be the case. It seems like there's a bunch of women rotating around rich men, and it seems like the rich men are getting all the women, right? Not all the women, but you understand what I'm saying. The young women have these expectations today of my guy has to have, 6 figures, 7 figures, right? And all that stuff. And I'm not disagreeing or anything, but what I'm saying is if you keep yourself in that trap, you'll never find the guy to begin with. So, yes, the financial component is very important, but just make sure that you have an understanding of how much is enough, right? But also from the man's side, right, to understand you got to go and get yours, you know, whether it's starting a new business or you're still working your job, you got to be consistent and you need to progress, right? You don't want to be in the same position making the same money forever, right? So the financial component is definitely important to any relationship, right? So let's move on. Here we have it. I told you we'd have a little bit of fun, right? It's without question, right? The sexual aspect is another component of an intimate relationship, of a successful relationship. And of course, I'm attributing this to not just the sacral chakra, but also the solar plexus chakra. And I'll get into that in a second. But sex, it's important. I mean, it's the first thing you see or the first thing you think of usually when you see your partner, right? When you locked eyes on your partner for that first time, that was probably what was going on through your mind, right? They're sexually attractive. That's why they're your partner. I would hope so. At least one reason, right? And so when you attribute that, right, to the sacral chakra, that's the pleasure chakra, right? So you got to have pleasure. But then also when you flip that, right, and you control yourself and control that energy, it moves into the solar plexus chakra. Which is your willpower. So for example, right, when you've had a great night of sex or whatever the case, right, you feel like a brand new person the next morning, right? And so that motivates you to go and do what? Go and care for that partner, right? Go and care for whoever you slept with. Meaning, you had sex last night and you wake up, you feel great, boom, you're going to work, right? Or you might even have sex before you even go to work, which motivates you even more to go get that money, right? So the sexual component is very important. And it's not just about, the cliche, porno clip type of sex, but really like understanding your partner's body from head to toe, understanding where those nerves are, right? What makes them feel good, what doesn't, right? That communication. And so speaking of communication, that's going to lead us to this next component. It's very important. So the second component is obviously sexual, right? That's the next component that is required for an intimate, successful relationship. So let's move on. Next, we have the emotional component. This is one of the more disturbing components, right, to relationship, because this is usually where most relationships could take a turn for the worst. And so that's why I apply the emotional component to the heart chakra and the throat chakra, right? Because the heart chakra, obviously, you need to have love for whoever you're dealing with. You have to go beyond the physical factor, go beyond the money factor, right? And understand who they are. How did they come to be? If you don't take the time and use your throat chakra to communicate with your partner, understand why they feel this way, what's going on today, right? Why are you built this way, right? What ticks you? You have to understand them emotionally. If you don't understand them emotionally, this is where you get a lot of the arguments, right? And this is where a lot of relationships fail, because you sincerely don't care about them, because you just got through with the first two components. You got what you wanted, right? The woman might have got the money and the man might have got the sex. And so because they got what they wanted, they don't have real concern and consideration, right? You fall into this trap of not wanting to even deal with understanding the emotional component of that relationship. So it's very important, right, that you focus on the emotions in the relationship and try and keep that stable and balanced as much as possible. Once you have a firm understanding of your partner emotionally and what they're into, what they're not into, what drives them crazy, and so forth, now you're able to build on that relationship and go towards the next level, right? Which I believe is this: the intellectual phase of the relationship, right? This is the fourth component that I believe is needed to grow in an intimate and successful relationship. And that is really making sure that you and your partner, right, after you have this understanding of money, after you have this understanding of how to please each other, and understanding, the heart of one another, right, your emotions, now you can build intellectually. Now you can grow. Now you can teach each other things. Now you can have same ambitions, same goals. You might even open up a business together, right? You might buy a home together, right? You're generating wealth for one another and each other's families. And that's a major thing. And once you get into this component, you're at a good standstill, because it's moved past physical now. Now it's mental. Now we have an understanding of how we're going to grow together, right? And so that's where that hump was with the last component, emotional. Once you understand that, you're over the hump, right? You're over the hill. Now you're free, right? You ever go down the hill and you're running, or you're tumbling, whatever. It's a exhilarating experience if you remember being a kid or whatever. But The intellectual component, it's necessary because it's how you're going to get better in life, right? So that's why I attribute it to the brow chakra, right? It's your intellectual capacity, using your brain, not just your other head down there, right? But actually coming to a format of, hey, let's build together. Let's help the community, right? Let's grow this business. It means something more. So once now you have this, well, everything else gets better, right? The financial component can get better, the sexual component get better, and obviously the emotional component can get better because you see what your partner's capable of intellectually, right? So that's that. We got one more. This is a component most people don't reach, the spiritual component. And of course, I'm attributing this to the crown chakra. This is a component where now it's life after death. This is why you often see Muslims with Muslims. You see Christians with Christians, and you may see atheists with atheists. It's because it goes beyond a mental capacity. It goes beyond the physical capacity, certainly the sexual capacity, right? Even the emotional capacity. It really stretches into, what is life, right? How do you and your partner interpret life, right? What do you want your legacy to be? And not only your legacy, but what happens after death, right? Are you still going to be together? Are you not? I mean, we don't know, right? But what I can tell you is to reach the spiritual component of most relationships, it's very difficult. It's very difficult because of the conscious understanding of the two that they may not match. Now, this component is actually not even tested in the short run. So this is why you may see relationships or marriages break off after 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, right? It's because they did not take this component, the spiritual component, into consideration when they were first dating. They were taking the financial and the sexual and perhaps even the emotional component first. So they didn't really think long run about, what they want their legacies to be, where they want to be on the planet, right? Because some people, they retire and then they leave the United States, right? Because the United States is such a hustle bustle place. They might want to retire and say, hey, I want to go here. I want to go to this island and retire to this island. But the other partner may not feel that way, right? So it all depends. But this is certainly a component that is very mindful, that you have to take into consideration, or I see a plateau of your relationship, right? I see it being stagnant to a point where it won't be everlasting, right? And that's what it's about, right? Till death do us apart. And so you have to be able to have a spiritual component to even take those vows seriously, right? So that's my opinion of it. Here we are again with the 5 components of an intimate relationship. I hope that down the line I can actually get a group to discuss this further. I'm not like some relationship guru, right? I'm not professional. So that was just my idea of what I thought about, relationships and whatnot. I made this in 2020, September 2020. So who knows? That was a bad time, right? September 2020. I probably was just in my feelings, and I was able to generate this presentation slide. But nonetheless, hopefully we can expand upon this, have a great conversation. And with that, I'll see y'all soon. Peace.